Welcome to This Week in Cannabis Live. I'm Jay Rosenthal. That's Anna Ray Grabstein from High Spirits. That's Mark Hauser from Cannabis Musings. Oh, I always get that wrong. Nope. And that's Jeremy. That's Jeremy, my co-founder at Cultivated and our editor-in-chief. We do this on Fridays at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. We break down and talk about, today it's going to be 5 cannabis stories of the week. One is kind of fun, so maybe it's 4 real stories and something fun, some candy at the end to celebrate the week after Halloween, which, by the way, I brought my kids to the dentist on Monday. Very popular move. Bring the kids to the dentist on the Monday after Halloween. That's my new favorite Halloween hack. Anna Ray, Mark, and Jeremy, welcome.
So good to see you guys.
Good to see you all.
Also, since last time, the Jays lost the World Series. So it's been sad here in Toronto, so I have no more Jays gear on. We're transitioning because Anna Ray gave the idea of like wearing a hat that means something last week. She was at Daniel Boone gear. I'm going to wear cannabis brands of yesteryear. This one is, what did I say, Anna Ray? Green Relief.
Or
Green Relief.
Something. Yeah,
Green Relief. It was a company here in Ontario that grew aquaponically. So they had big fish tanks. The fish pooped, fed the plants, put the clean water back into the tanks. And it was this cool system to go see. I'm not sure they ever produced any weed that sold on shelves or was alive when cannabis actually became legal in Canada. But many remember the field trip to see the fish. Okay, let's get to it. This was a big week on the election front. There was a blue wave, which may be a green wave. I'm going to run through some elections, which I think have resonance to the cannabis industry. One, the mayor of New York is someone who has bought cannabis at a legal cannabis store. We talked about that in the past couple of weeks. Zohan Mamdani, Jeremy's college buddy. The governor of New Jersey supports home grow. The governor of Virginia, a Democrat, supports legalization. So that may be a state we're going to talk about a lot. In addition to all that, there was a new Gallup poll that showed Republican support for legalization is back where it was 10 years ago, which was well under 50%. Who wants to talk about any of these results from Tuesday night? Anna Ray, I'm going to go to you because you're right next to me.
Yeah, I think probably in terms of cannabis market opportunity, the Virginia election is the biggest deal that I would point to. These other wins are in states that already have active legal cannabis. And we've had a situation in Virginia for a while where the governor, just really of his own personal volition, has been getting in the way of launching a legal cannabis adult use market. And I am thinking that this new governor is going to hopefully make it possible for the market to launch. And that's kind of on the back of what we talked about maybe last week or the week before, but there is some lawsuits going on in Virginia between the licensed medical cannabis operators who have sued Jushi, specifically is suing DoorDash and Total Wine for their selling of intoxicating hemp beverages in their channel. So I think that Virginia is going to be a big one to watch. There's going to be some exciting action there for sure. Yeah.
I think it's also more bad news for the DC market, who got sort of not decimated by Maryland's legalization, but another legal market on the doorstep is going to be super hard for them to compete with. Mark, what say you on the political front?
Well, I'll just weigh in on that Virginia lawsuit. I mean, I totally agree that this is good for the legalization efforts. That lawsuit, though, I wrote about it in my musings last week. I mean, what's funny about that lawsuit is they're not really trying to stop the sale of hemp in the state. They're suing over the packaging, and the packaging format, which is funny. It doesn't get much funnier about lawsuits than that. They're like all this stuff, and it's just the way the stuff is packaged. But I think the polling is an interesting data point, and it'll be interesting to see, if that sort of data point trends continue to sort of weaken. It wasn't just among Republicans; it's also among independents, or self-reporting independents. And so, to me, on the federal level, it's always been about who are the people that are voting in the primaries, who are always the most sort of engaged politically, who are voting in the primaries for Republicans in the Senate. To me, that is who you need to persuade in order to get Republican senators the political sort of cover to vote in favor of legalization or anything else, safe banking, right, whatever, because why spend the political capital? That's always been my feeling about it. And so I worry that, if that support is starting to erode, it makes it a little harder for that to change. Now, again, I'm not trying to dismiss that, the Democrats were, it could have done a lot more as well, but it's always been this sort of, the core of why spend the political capital on weed. And so I don't know. I worry that is not a good trend for things changing in the federal level.
But let's talk about for a minute, like what I want to know from you guys is why? Where is this coming from? Why are Republicans and independents losing support for legal?
That's a great question.
I have a theory, a bad one, because I don't know the breakdown of this poll from Gallup, but it could be. Here's my theory, that the 85% of Democrats, mostly Democratic states, have become adult use legal, California, New York, Illinois, whatever, and they see it as a net positive, or certainly not a net negative. So Democrats or independents, in this case Democrats in particular, who've actually seen legal weed in person, it becomes more popular as it becomes legal, whereas Republicans, fewer of them have actually seen it. Certainly strong beds of the Republican Party in the South in particular, they just haven't seen it yet, or even Texas. So it becomes a net, they don't see the positive benefits of it. That's my theory without knowing the how this poll was put together, but that is one theory. And it's a very polarized country right now. There aren't many issues that anybody sees eye to eye on. Cannabis, we thought, was one of them, but the gap is getting wider, not closer.
Yeah, I love to see this dissected between Republicans in red states versus Republicans in blue states. Like, are the Republicans in red states that haven't experienced legalization the ones that are anti, or is it the Republicans that are experiencing legalization that are turning their back on it and don't think it's good?
I was just going to add, I mean, to that point, we should not discount the efforts of the anti-legalization groups in DC right now. The pro-legalization groups, I think, have pulled back in many profound ways, and groups like Smart Approaches to Marijuana are finding a very, very receptive audience, both among lawmakers on Capitol Hill, as well as, Jay, to your point, Republicans in red states that don't have cannabis, and their only sort of exposure to the industry is through fear-mongering ads. I think this has been a pretty successful coordinated effort, and we're seeing it reflect in the polls right now. The last piece I'll say on that is, outside of Virginia, which is, the legislature has developed cannabis regulations and delivered it to the governor's desk multiple times now, so it's sort of a matter of time there. But outside of purpley states like Virginia, we really are waiting on deep red states who, if it was up to them, may never move to a place where they're going to allow recreational cannabis, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people still alive in the Reagan administration who just say no, and I think their attitudes are not going to change while they're in their 60s and 70s. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I'll just toss in one last thing is, and I mean, to your point as well, I think it would be interesting to see also what that polling looks like in states in Florida and Texas, where you have,
right,
where hemp is so prevalent, and and the consumer confusion between hemp and licensed cannabis, which, I mean, because it's all cannabis, but so I think it would be also interesting to sort of dig into that and see is that part of it, because that might also then tell us, give a little bit more as to where Congress might be thinking on the hemp loophole issue. But I know that's a whole nother topic that's not.
We might even get to that.
Yeah,
We might
might
even
even
get to
get-
that in a little bit.
I think
I want to.
thinking is kind of the way that things are moving right now in our culture, and there was a lot more gray over the past 4 years. I think with the past administration, this administration is creating a social culture and environment that just is a lot more black and white thinking, and in that reality, we are seeing prohibitionists find their voice. I mean, we're seeing it in Massachusetts and in Maine, where prohibitionists are trying to reverse legalization, and this is a fight that I'm honestly surprised is happening, but it seems to be spreading. So
I'm not surprised by
totally.
anything. I'm not surprised by anything but this, because I have an insatiable appetite for fandom. Nathan Meisen from Alberta. Good day, all. Always nice to see Jay Rosenthal. I agree, Nathan. Hello. If any fans or any people are watching want to chime in, I will put your comments on the screen if they are appropriate. This one was. Some are not as much, so I can't share those. But Nathan, thanks for watching. I want to move on to the next topic. Omnium. So Jeremy, we carried a story, but it's been the story in New York for some time about Omnium. I don't know what the right word is, getting their license stripped or having their products made at that facility removed. There's the claim is that cannabis from outside New York making its way into a processing manufacturing facility, ending up in brands and products on the shelves in New York. We had a story that Chris Kosaki, a former of MJ Biz, wrote for us. Give us a bit of the background about that, and I'll share the story right now as well.
Yeah, sure. So Omnium is a Long Island processor. Basically, they take cannabis, refine it into the products that you see on dispensary shelves, edibles, pre-rolls, whatever that may be. The core issue with Omnium, and I'm going to try to make this as quick and high level as possible, is they entered into a lot of agreements to white label out-of-state cannabis products, meaning they take cannabis grown in New York per regulation, slap an out-of-state label, maybe it's a California cannabis brand, and then put that on the dispensary shelf, which allows the California brand to get exposure to the New York market, right? The real issue that the cannabis regulators, the Office of Cannabis Management, sees here is that instead of just white labeling, they've actually taken out-of-state cannabis, funneled it through the processing facility, and that has ended up on dispensary shelves. That is, of course, highly illegal. Cannabis can't cross state lines per the Constitution. It's a Schedule I drug. And so the Office of Cannabis Management basically called them out very publicly. They threatened to revoke their license. They're taking all the products that they can trace back to the Omnium facility off store shelves. Omnium had until Monday, I believe, to respond to the allegations. So they still technically have their license, but the fines are on the table. And so we will see what is about to happen. I think the broader issue here, just to sort of tie this all into a circle, is that this has really rippled through the New York cannabis industry. It's a really big crisis of trust. And while, out-of-state cannabis, like prior to legalization, I'm sure we all smoked pot across state lines, right? Or even federal lines. So it's not necessarily a consumer issue, but it could very well be, right? We just don't know where these products were grown, how they were tested, whether they actually passed the pesticide and heavy metals testing regimes. But it's, one thing for consumers not to know, it's another thing for the regulators not to know, as they're trying to stand up a now near $2 billion market. And so this is sort of I don't want to say the first big test for New York, because it's had a lot of tests, but this is a very, very big test for the effective regulation of the market right now.
Yeah, I will say, and then I'll have Anna Ray and Mark chime in too. We'll say that like the full blown metric and BioTrack is not up and running in New York, which is an important part of this as well. And
that mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's like, while I get everything you said, Jared, it's like I'm not saying some responsibility falls on the state. The state's responsibility is to get their tracking up and running, usually as legalization happens, but so much so not.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I will say that it's not, this is, there's a lot of fingers to point at here. And I think, I as a reporter, I want to see like where the chips fall before I get out over my skis, so to speak. But yes, like absolutely, it's a market failure for Omnium, for the OCM. This is a bad look.
And I've seen you ski, Jerry. You're never out over your skis. Anna Ray, what about you? You want to see where this cannabis is coming from, yeah?
So the industry is calling this inversion, right? Like bringing in
Yeah.
cannabis from another place into the market. I hate that term. Inversion is literally upside down. That is not what this is. I have an inversion table in my garage. It stretches my back. I lay on it and I go upside down.
Oh, I want to get one of those. Yeah,
They're amazing. There's lots on Craigslist.
I'm sure.
Anyway, you know, they're really this is not inversion. This is illegal. This is absolutely outside of the whole construct of what the market was meant to do and to represent, but we all knew it was coming. So I think in some ways it's like, I'm sure that the New York operators are relieved that there is someone paying attention and that there's some level of enforcement, because when you create a really complicated regulatory environment that has a whole bunch of different check boxes that you have to follow in order to operate, you've got a bunch of folks that are great operators and that are following all the rules. And then those operators are watching the people that they compete with not follow the rules. And it is infuriating to try to figure out how to internally justify the costs of regulatory complexity when there's blatant disregard going on right next to you. So the OCM had to do something here. Yeah, how the chips fall, I don't know, but we can't have a market that's just completely unfair because some people follow the rules and some people don't, but there are no consequences for those that don't.
Anna Ray, you
also
said almost, sorry, Anna Ray, you said almost the exact same thing. Sorry to do this to you. You said almost the exact same thing that Boris Jordan said on our show about the New York market. I know you weren't quoting him, but he did say
Wait a
a very
minute.
similar thing with frankly saltier language.
Wait, Anna Ray, are you Boris Jordan?
Yeah, this is just a mask I left
You guys
over.
kind of look alike.
Look at the story you just blew on. That's amazing.
I love
it. The point I want to add there on the public health question, outside of the business perspective, is the regulatory failure. Absolutely, if there is a contaminated product that gets into the supply chain this way, disentangling the epidemiology of it all, it will be very, very challenging, right? And thinking back to our earlier conversation about views of cannabis, especially among Republicans, declining. If consumers get sick in a blue state with a regulated cannabis market, think of the opportunity that the anti-legalization pushers have to seize on that, right? Without being able to figure out what happened, where it is. That's not to say these products are unsafe. That's what the OCM told Chris and I in the story. They don't believe these products are unsafe, right? But just think of the ramifications if that were to be the case. They are very bad.
Yeah. Can we move on to the? Sorry, this story is important. Can we also move on? Because the conversation around hemp in Congress, this is like the 100th week we've talked about this. But this week there were a couple of new news stories that I think tell me, or at least hint to me, that something is happening, because we saw there was a story that Pepsi, Coke, Heinz, Kraft, I think it was, were in Nestle, were in Congress advocating for a hemp ban. Or to close the loophole, if you will. There was other people saying it wasn't a loophole in 2018, but it seems like this is garnering more attention than just like hemp beverage companies and the cannabis industry. It seems to be growing beyond the two senators from Kentucky. Mark, like you roll your eyes at this all the time. Like, what do you think is happening in Congress, or are we just so focused on this that any news is any news?
Well, I'm gonna not quite answer your question first,
Sure.
but I want to circle back just briefly to that wasn't a loophole thing. I have tons of respect for Marijuana Moment and the work that they do to keep us, informed real time about everything that's going on. But that headline was a little misleading. If you actually read the letter, he doesn't say that in the letter, and and the letter itself really skirts on what was said, what was claimed to be said at the time, the lobbying the letter writer was doing. So, I really hesitate to say that letter suggests that it wasn't, that it wasn't a little plus. Just because a lobbyist was, feeding Congress language doesn't, a loophole. All that matters is it depends on what Congress was thinking, and nobody in Congress was thinking that this stuff was, so that's why I really don't want to perpetuate that talking point. It's a loophole, but but putting that aside, to go back to your question, is it seems like yes, a lot of people have weighed in. A lot of big lobbying groups have weighed in the past 2 or 3 weeks from both sides of the issue. And I think it's just the timing. But as far as what's going to happen at this point and when it's going to happen, nobody still knows. And I think trying to predict it is just impossible, unfortunately. I mean,
I want to put it in perspective a little bit, because I think that you're right, Jay, that there have been some CPG brands that have come out kind of pro-ban this week. But it's really, you're starting to see this bifurcation in the message that it isn't just alcohol bev. You're seeing that the alcohol brands are coming out wanting a ban because that is competitive with their business. The alcohol distributors are all for hemp beverages because they have space on their trucks and they want to fill them up. And the retailers, the convenience stores, they are all for it because their consumers are interested. So you've got these 3 levels of the supply chain, and they're starting to have different opinions. And what does this remind you of? Well, what's happening in regulated cannabis? It's like everybody is trying to protect their fiefdom. And so you're starting to see lobbying that is more specific. It isn't just alcohol bev broadly. It is like a segment of the alcohol bev space that is trying to hold on to whatever shelf space they have left. And they're seeing that these intoxicating THC beverages are grabbing shelf space from them. And so, of course, they're going to rally against it. And the other thing is that they aren't only frustrated about competing, they aren't ready to compete themselves yet with their own products. And they want more time so that they can get there. But
who's
it is...
Who's the they?
Say that again?
In the last part, who's the they?
I think it's the big alc bev country. That's what I think. Because Jeremy and I have talked to some of the smaller ones, the Boston beer companies of the world, and they're all in. They have cannabis beverages here. They want to do cannabis beverages everywhere. They're doing their R&D, all over the place.
Well, but it's not just. But remember though, the Wine Institute, the Beer Institute, the Spirits trade group. I mean, they represent the entire industries, though. I mean, yes, they're fun. A lot of the funding in political power within those groups are the big companies.
Wholesalers, the distributors are having a different perspective.
Sure. Yes, it's the exact opposite. I would just, Anna, I think you make another excellent point here, which is that this. I mean, this is the federal legalization debate playing for licensed cannabis, let's call it, playing out in the hemp. Because to me, it really is going to come down to a policy decision on the part of Congress of, does Congress want to allow psychoactive, psychotropic products to be sold publicly, in any format, and whether, and that's at the heart of this debate. And yes, it's about jobs, it's about money, it's about all that. But at its heart, does Congress want to allow stuff that gets you high to be sold at a store? Putting aside the medical and all of that, so I think it's sort of a little bit, I think it's the debate that licensed cannabis has never had the money to fund to allow that debate to happen in Congress.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of turning out that way, and it's kind of interesting to watch.
No, it's great to watch. It's great for this show, frankly. Gives us something to talk about each week. Jeremy, can we shift gears for a second, because it's been earnings week, or earnings 2 weeks, I guess, for big cannabis companies, small cannabis companies. Give us, you wrote a little bit in yesterday's newsletter, I think, sort of, and each time we talk about it, we say, is this a bellwether of things to come? What have you seen in the earnings reports? And can you give us how many times can you say 280E in 3 sentences?
Yeah, I was about to talk about 280E, so I'm sorry in advance for everyone. Look, I think we're seeing much of the same in these quarterly earnings. I think, directionally there are some interesting details, but it's much of the same. In the past, I think, a couple things to call out. One, Green Thumb Industries, GTI, continues to be profitable. I mean, it's a big achievement in the cannabis industry. It's one of the only of the big 5 MSOs that actually has net income, not in parentheses, quarter over quarter. And so, look, like, kudos to that management team. They deal with all the same challenges that their peers do, and I think that should be highlighted. Two, we saw Truliev's new CFO, and I don't know who's watching this, but it is like the 5th CFO, I think, in as many years. And he seems to be getting his feet under him. He had an interesting aside in the earnings call where he said, if we didn't have 280E, I'm sorry, Jay, that the company would actually have been profitable not only for the quarter, but for the past 9 months. That very well may be true, but the company has also decided not to pay much of their 280E tax. And on the balance sheet, there was, I think, off the top of my head, about 617 million or 618 million in tax liability, unpaid tax liability. And that's like, I'm no financial analyst, but that to me seems like it's a big problem.
You're an
so
MBA.
Look, yeah, I mean, I do have an MBA. My corporate finance professor actually took me aside and told me that whatever happens on the left side of the equation has to happen on the right, and that was basically all I learned from corporate finance. But that being said, look, like, I think it's much of the same. I think for Trulieve CFO to come out and say that on an earnings call, which with having that uncertain tax position, I think that was a pretty interesting thing to see. At the end of the day, I think companies are focused on being diligent, cutting costs. Often employees bear the brunt of that, but they have a fiduciary responsibility to cut costs. Really, only Congress can help now and free up a lot of cash flow that's sitting there on these balance sheets.
Catherine's funny. I don't know Catherine Sidman, but she's funny. So I'll put her comments on. She also said, "Preach to you, Anna Ray." So this is on a previous comment, but yeah.
Shout out to Catherine since she's listening. She has the best LinkedIn headline on LinkedIn. So I won't tell you guys what it is. You can just all go there and Catherine, watch your profile views shoot up. She's got a great headline. It's caught my attention and made me make sure I knew who she was. But Jeremy, to your point on earnings reports, yes, the earnings reports in cannabis don't look very different than last quarter. It's a lot of the same. However, in general, earnings reports are great opportunities for learning. And there's earnings reports that are coming out right now that are not just cannabis companies, but CPG companies, alcohol bev companies. And I would encourage everybody to be paying attention to what these companies are talking about, because some of them are also giving us clues to what they predict consumer behavior to be about and the way that consumers are going to choose how to spend their money or what's happening in the economy. So just plug for being earnings report dorks, because I learn a lot from paying attention to earnings reports from outside cannabis companies of what might.
I know what EBITDA is now, so that's maybe a good thing or a bad thing.
I think saying earnings report dork is it's like too many of the same words all in once. Like that's like if you say the words earning report or EBITDA, it makes you a dork. Full stop. Can we go to something fun to end it with some fun? Stephen Colbert, his show got canceled, but there's a big sort of story in GQ, and there's some pictures that go along with the story that I quite love. He's at the Chateau Marmont, and he's smoking a joint in the pool, which sounds like there's nothing cooler than smoking a joint in the pool at Chateau Marmont in LA. That's one picture. Here's the other one. He looks like he's having a good time. That's better than doing a late night show, I think. What say you, Anna Ray?
Oh, I am all for smoking joints in pools with Stephen Colbert. So I'm just wondering where my invitation was, because I should have been there. That sounds amazing. Looks amazing. It's not an easy feat to keep a joint dry in a pool or a hot tub. So this looks very relaxing. There was effort that went into this photo shoot, but I'm a hell yes.
Me too.
Yeah, and he's got a great head of hair too for his age.
That's what I thought.
I'm very jealous about that.
Yeah,
I hope he's using a lot of sunscreen though. I mean, I'm a little worried about
Yeah, totally. Well, we can ask.
I wish I could have that much joy in my life that he is showing in this picture.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt that he makes a ton of money, and he has very little to care about right now. His show is sort of on its way out, but he's got all the money, all the fame. He could come on this show. This is an open invitation whenever he wants. He could be in the pool smoking a joint. He could be here smoking a joint. He'd come to Las Vegas during the beginning of December. He could sit with us then as well, and there'll be lots of weed around, so he could do that. Jeremy, are you pro pool joint?
Look, if I was laid off by the large adult son of a billionaire, I'd probably be doing the exact same thing. So
I like it. I like that. I like that. I like that. Yeah, I think it's
I'm doing the same thing in my backyard this afternoon. It's a hot tub.
I might
not
do the same thing.
but-
Yeah, while I have a job. So
it's supposed to snow here on Sunday, so we won't be doing that at any. Well, there's no outdoor pools, but maybe an outdoor rink this winter in Canada. We will not with the kids, but late night skates, totally possible. Mark, Anna Ray, Jeremy, I quite like this show. I hope you guys are having fun. I think our fans are watching it. See, even one here. See, fun. Thank you, Corey.
I like that you just said that we have fans, as if there are fans of us. So just out there. Thank you.
See, very big fan to meet your folks in this group. And very pleased this conversation is happening. See, Shay, Aaron, Gilmore. See, that's the only person that said fan, but let's call them fans.
Yeah,
I'm
having fun.
I'm having fun. We're all having fun. Check out. I don't know. Someone plugging a brand. Clippies. There we go. Catherine Stidman. She's our biggest fan at the moment. Thank you, Anna Ray. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jeremy. We'll be back next week, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. This week in Cannabis live. And thanks, everybody. We'll see everybody next Friday. Bye, y'all.
thanks, everyone.